Disclaimer. This content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. My name is Elise. I'm 34, and I used to believe that loving someone meant you'd never feel lonely again. That was before I started waking up beside a man who doesn't touch me unless I ask. Before silence became the loudest sound in our apartment. Before I stopped wearing lipstick because he stopped noticing. I've been with Ian for almost 9 years. And for the first 6, we were good. Not perfect, but solid. He made me laugh. We used to talk late into the night, legs tangled, drunk on wine and each other. We had this stupid rule: no phones in bed, ever. It felt sacred. We had rituals, like Friday night pasta and slow Sunday mornings with coffee and jazz. He'd sneak up behind me while I did the dishes and wrap his arms around my waist. I'd lean back into him without thinking. But lately, even when he holds me, it feels like he's thinking of something else. Or someone else. Or maybe just nothing. Last week, I leaned in to kiss him after dinner, just a casual, nothing kiss, and he flinched like I caught him off guard. He smiled, of course. Said, "Sorry, babe," and kissed me back. But there was something in that pause, that fraction of hesitation, that told me everything I didn't want to admit. It felt like kissing a memory of him, not the man in front of me. I think I started disappearing a while ago. Not all at once, more like piece by piece. A little when he started working late every night. A little more when he stopped texting me during the day just to say hi. And then more, when we'd sit across from each other at dinner and talk about bills and groceries and what his boss said in the meeting, but never about us. I keep asking myself when we stopped touching each other like it meant something. When sex turned into something we should probably do soon, instead of something we wanted. When he started pulling away the second it was over, turning on his side like my body wasn't even still there. I miss being wanted. Not just for my body, but for my thoughts, my moods, my weird little quirks. I miss the way he used to look at me like he knew exactly what kind of mischief I was planning, even when I wasn't planning anything. I miss feeling like someone was paying attention. I'm not blaming him completely. I know I've changed, too. I stopped reaching for him in bed because I got tired of being turned down. I stopped dressing up just to feel pretty because it felt pointless. I got tired of trying to relight a fire I wasn't even sure he still wanted. But there's this moment I keep replaying in my head, this very specific moment when I knew something had shifted. It wasn't dramatic. It was a Tuesday. We were in the kitchen. I had just come home from work, a long, exhausting day, and I looked at him and said, "God, I could really use a hug right now." And he said, "1 sec," without even looking up from his laptop. 1 second. And I stood there waiting, arms around my own shoulders, until I realized he wasn't going to look up. And I just went to the bathroom and cried quietly. That was it. Not a fight. Not a betrayal. Just a ghost of a moment where love should have been, and wasn't. I've never told anyone that before. Not my mom. Not my best friend. Not even Ian. But today, something happened. Something small, but strange and unexpected. I helped my older neighbor, Miriam, with a leaky faucet, and she asked me to stay. Not just for tea. Not just to chat. She looked at me like she saw me, like she knew. And in that moment, I think I remembered what it felt like to be visible again. I know how that sounds. I'm not looking for some big, romantic escape. I'm not trying to run from my life. But I am wondering, when did it become normal to feel so unwanted? And why does it feel so dangerous to be noticed again? Ian's a high school science teacher. He's good at explaining how things work, circuits, atoms, chemical bonds. But when it comes to us? Lately, he looks at me like I'm a problem he can't quite solve. It started the morning after I helped Miriam. She'd offered me tea and a place to sit, but what I really heard was, "You don't have to go back just yet." That night, I lay in bed next to Ian, and I swear I could feel an inch of air between our shoulders like a canyon. I didn't say anything. Neither did he. The next morning, Ian made pancakes. Blueberry, my favorite, and not the frozen kind. He actually mixed the batter from scratch. He even played my old Coffee and Kitchen playlist on his phone. It was thoughtful. It should have warmed me. But when I came into the kitchen, hair messy, eyes still heavy, and said, "Hey," he just said, "Hungry?" and kissed the top of my head like he was checking my temperature. I smiled, but my stomach tightened. I sat down. He poured syrup. He didn't ask how I slept. He didn't ask if I was okay. And all I could think was, "You still don't see it. You think feeding me fixes it." Later, I tried to tell him. Tried. I said, "Hey, can I ask you something?" He looked up from his grating pile, glasses halfway down his nose. "Of course. Do you ever feel like we're off lately?" He frowned, set down his pen. "What do you mean, off? Like fighting?" "No, not fighting. Just," I hesitated. "Disconnected." He walked over, wrapped his arms around my waist, and pulled me close. "We're just tired. Busy. Work's been insane. You've had that new project." "It's normal, babe." I tried not to stiffen, but I did. His hands slid under my shirt, instinctual, not intentional. I wanted to be close, too. But not like this. Not to be touched as a fix-it strategy. I needed words first. I needed presence. I stepped back slightly. "I'm not saying I don't love you. I'm just saying, sometimes it feels like I'm vanishing in front of you." He blinked. Confused. Hurt, maybe. "That's not fair." I didn't mean it as an attack. "You think I don't care about you? I made you breakfast. I kissed you. I'm holding you right now." "I know," I said, soft but steady. "But it's not the holding I need. It's the noticing." He pulled his arms away. "Okay, now I don't know what to do. You say you want closeness, but then you pull away. You say you want connection, but when I try, it's not good enough." He wasn't shouting. He never does. But that made it worse, somehow, the quiet disappointment in his voice. Like he wanted to do it right and still failed. I felt like a monster. I didn't mean to punish him for trying. I just wanted more than gestures. I wanted the him that used to lean in and ask how my day felt, not just what happened in it. He walked away and closed the bedroom door. I stood in the living room surrounded by pancake dishes, the faint scent of syrup and blue sky through the window, and this ache inside my chest I didn't know how to name. That night, we barely spoke. He fell asleep with his back to me. I stared at the ceiling and wondered if I was being unreasonable. If maybe I was just broken in some small, unfixable way. Needy. Complicated. Difficult to love. The next day, I ran into Miriam again. She was trimming the ivy on her porch and waved me over. "You look tired, dear," she said, her voice warm and unbothered. "Just didn't sleep much." She nodded. The hard things always wake us up. I didn't ask what she meant. I just helped her lift a box of tools back into the shed. She offered me a drink, lemonade this time, and as we sat on her porch swing, I felt her gaze linger on me the way Ian's used to. Not romantic. Not even intimate. Just attentive. And that kind of noticing? God, it felt like air after weeks of holding my breath. The worst part is, I still want him. Or maybe I want the version of him that used to sit on the kitchen floor with me at 2 a.m., laughing at the burnt cookies we forgot in the oven. The version who used to trace lazy lines on my back while I rambled about childhood dreams and bad bosses. Now I flinch when he touches me. Not because I don't love him, but because I'm scared that touch is all we have left. Last night, he came home early. That never happens anymore. I thought we could do movie night, he said, holding up a bag of kettle corn and my favorite red wine. I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to throw my arms around him and feel what I used to feel. But instead, I smiled too tightly and said, sure. Let me change first. I sat in the bedroom, staring at my reflection, wondering what I looked like through his eyes now. Tired? Distant? Bored? I hadn't worn mascara in 3 days. I hadn't shaved my legs in a week. I changed into one of his old hoodies. Maybe I wanted to remind him of something, or maybe I wanted to hide. We curled up on the couch like strangers pretending to remember how they used to touch. His hand found my thigh under the blanket. I didn't move it away, but I didn't lean in either. We watched half of the movie, and I couldn't tell you a single scene. Halfway through, he leaned in to kiss me. Soft at first. Familiar. But it didn't feel like closeness. It felt like a checkpoint. I kissed him back. Out of habit. Out of guilt. Out of hope that maybe this time it would wake something up. His hand slid to my lower back, then under the hoodie. I stiffened. He paused. Too much. I hesitated. I'm just tired. He nodded, sat back, and sipped his wine. The silence stretched between us like a taut string. A few minutes later, he slapped my butt playfully when I got up to grab more popcorn. I flinched. Not dramatically. But enough. He noticed. Sorry, he said quietly. It's fine. But it wasn't. When I sat back down, I made sure there was a cushion between us. He turned the volume up. I looked over at him, really looked. His jaw was tight. He was chewing the inside of his cheek like he does when he's frustrated but won't say anything. I felt that familiar guilt crawl back up my spine. We used to be so good at this, reading each other, knowing when to push and when to give space. Now, it feels like every gesture gets misread, every silence filled with assumptions. He tries to show me love the only way he knows how, by touching, by kissing, by reaching for me in the middle of a quiet evening. But I need him to ask first. I need him to see me first. Not just my skin. Not just the shape of me in a hoodie. But the me who's drowning inside, begging for a lifeline that doesn't come with a hand on my thigh. And the truth? I don't know how to tell him that. Because the second I try, I sound cold. Or selfish. Or broken. So I sit there, letting him think I'm tired, or distracted, or somewhere else entirely. When really, I'm just lost in the question that keeps echoing louder and louder in my mind every time he touches me. Why does everything have to turn into sex? It happened over spaghetti. Of all things, it had to be something so familiar, so deceptively harmless. The pasta was overcooked, and the sauce tasted too sweet, but Ian smiled across the table like it was a candlelit date in Tuscany instead of our cramped apartment with a flickering ceiling bulb. He had that look, hopeful, like he was trying. Like this was him reaching out. He poured me a glass of wine and said, "Hey, remember our first apartment? The one with the roaches?" I nodded and gave a small laugh. Yeah. And the sink that wouldn't stop leaking. God, that thing. You had to bang it with a spoon just to get it to stop. I smiled again, but it felt like someone else's mouth was doing it for me. Then he reached across the table and touched my hand. It was small. Innocent. But I froze. And then something in me cracked open like a thin sheet of glass under too much weight. "Please stop," I said. He blinked. "Stop, what?" "This," I said, waving vaguely at the table. "The whole, fake date night thing. The wine. The sweet spaghetti. The pretending." "I'm not pretending," he said, voice tight. "I'm trying." "I know," I whispered, already hating myself for ruining it. "But it doesn't feel real. It feels like maintenance. Like you're checking off a box so I won't leave." "That's not fair," he said, setting his fork down hard. "I came home early. I made dinner. I'm trying to reconnect and you're accusing me of, what? Being calculated? No. I'm accusing you of not seeing me." His eyes narrowed. "Here we go again. No, really. You touch me like you want something from me. You kiss me like you're hoping it'll shut me up. You listen like you're waiting for your turn to talk. That's bullshit," he snapped. "I do everything I can to make you feel loved and nothing is ever enough for you anymore." I stood up. My chair scraped too loudly against the floor. My voice rose even though I didn't want it to. "Because you only touch me. You never ask how I am. You never notice that I'm drowning, Ian. I cry in the shower just so you don't have to see it. I lie next to you at night and pretend I'm asleep because I can't keep pretending everything's fine." His face flushed. Angry. But underneath it, I saw it, the confusion. The helplessness. The same question I'd been asking myself for months: how the hell did we get here? "You never said anything," he said, quieter now. "You just started pulling away. Because I didn't know how to say it without hurting you. Too late." The silence after was thick. Bitter. I wiped at my cheeks and didn't even realize I was crying until my vision blurred. "I helped Miriam with a faucet the other day," I said, trying to steady my voice. He blinked, caught off guard. "Your neighbor?" "Yeah. She asked me to stay after. Just for tea. Just to sit. And she looked at me like I wasn't invisible." He stared at me like I'd just admitted to something terrible. And maybe I had, not an affair, not a betrayal, but the fact that someone else saw me when he didn't. He didn't say anything. He just stood up, grabbed his wine glass, and walked into the bedroom. The door clicked shut. And I stood there, shaking, chest hollowed out by the weight of all the things I'd finally said. Later that night, I curled up on the couch under the hoodie I hadn't taken off in 3 days. I kept replaying the scene in my head, the shouting, the spaghetti, his face when I mentioned Miriam. What was I even trying to prove? That I could still be noticed? That I hadn't completely disappeared? That I wanted him to fight for me, not just with dinners and kisses, but with truth? Instead, I'd hurt him. I'd humiliated myself. And all I felt now was guilt. And confusion. And this deep, aching shame that I couldn't seem to just accept the love he was offering. Even if it didn't feel like love to me anymore. It's been 12 days. 12 days since the spaghetti blow-up. Since I stood at our kitchen table crying over a too sweet sauce and everything else that's been simmering for months. We haven't touched since then. Not even accidentally. No more kisses goodbye. No more arms brushing in the hallway. Ian doesn't even sit on the same side of the couch anymore. We just orbit each other now. Quietly. He still makes his coffee at 6:15 every morning. Still leaves 2 mugs on the counter, even though I've stopped drinking mine. I don't know if it's habit or hope. Maybe both. Every time I hear the clink of the spoon stirring sugar into his mug, something in my chest twists. Like I'm mourning a person who's still alive but no longer reachable. He doesn't slam doors. Doesn't pick fights. That's not Ian. He just moves through the apartment with a different kind of silence now, one that's heavy instead of peaceful. Sometimes, I hear him laughing softly at something on his phone, probably a clip from his students. He used to show them to me. He doesn't anymore. Now I just hear the laughter through the wall like I'm not allowed to share it anymore. And the thing is, I miss him. God, I miss him. Even the way he leaves his shoes in the middle of the hallway. The way he hums while folding laundry. I find myself looking at the side of his face when he's focused, like I'm trying to memorize someone who's slowly slipping away. But I also see his sadness. I see the way his smile doesn't reach his eyes anymore. I see how he lingers at the front door before leaving for work, like maybe he wants to say something and doesn't know how. And I realize, I've made him feel just as invisible as I've been feeling. That night at the table. I didn't just explode. I wounded him. I used Miriam as a mirror to show him what he wasn't giving me, and it wasn't fair. Because the truth is, Ian's not cruel. He's not neglectful. He's confused and trying and probably exhausted by this slow drift we both let happen. I keep replaying one moment from last week. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, tying my hair up. He walked in, paused like he might say something, then just grabbed a book and left. And something in that moment broke me a little. Because I wanted him to come closer. And I also didn't know what I would say if he did. This space between us, it's become its own language. One we both speak fluently now, without even meaning to. Today, I stood at the kitchen sink scrubbing a glass until my fingers hurt. The faucet dripped in that same rhythm as always. But instead of banging it with a spoon like I used to, I just stared. I remembered Miriam's words that day, the hard things always wake us up. And maybe this is my waking. Maybe this is the moment I finally ask myself, do I still want this man? Or do I just miss the idea of us? The ache in my chest says I do want him. Still. Even now. But I don't want to go back to what we were. I want something new with him, something more honest, more fragile, maybe, but more real. So tonight, I'll say something. Maybe not everything. Maybe just, do you want to talk? Maybe that's enough. Because if there's even a flicker left between us, the words felt heavy in my mouth. I stood in the hallway, barefoot, the edge of my sweater sleeves balled up in my fists. Ian was on the couch, half reading a book he'd already read twice. The TV was on, volume low, just background noise between us. I took a breath. Ian, can we talk? He didn't look startled. Just closed the book slowly and turned toward me. Yeah, he said softly. Okay. I sat on the other end of the couch. Not too far. Not too close. My heart was pounding like I was about to confess something criminal. I'm sorry, I said. His jaw twitched. For what? For everything. For blowing up. For shutting you out. For not knowing how to ask for what I needed, and then punishing you for not giving it. He looked down at his hands, picking at a loose thread in the cushion. I didn't know you felt that way, he said after a moment. I thought we were just, in a rough patch. I didn't know it ran that deep. It did, I said. But that's not your fault alone. I stopped talking. I started assuming. I let silence grow where trust should have been. He nodded slowly. There was a long pause. Not angry, just real. Tired. Honest. I miss you, he said. I swallowed hard. I miss you too. And then, he reached out. Just placed his hand gently over mine. Not hungry. Not sexual. Just there. I didn't pull away. We sat like that for a while. I don't know how to fix this, I whispered. Me neither, he said. But I want to try, if you do. I nodded. I do. But I need us to go slower. Less touching just to fill space. More asking. More talking. Okay. And I'll try to stop expecting you to read my mind. He gave a tired smile. Deal. Later that night, we both lay in bed, fully clothed, facing each other. We didn't touch. Just talked quietly until sleep pulled us under. Before I drifted off, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His hand lingered for a moment on my cheek, and then he kissed my forehead. It wasn't passion. It wasn't performance. It was presence. And maybe that's where it begins again. If you had told me a month ago that I'd be crying over a dripping faucet, I would have laughed. Or rolled my eyes. I used to think emotional unraveling came all at once, like a car crash or a sudden storm. But it doesn't. Not always. Sometimes it comes drip by drip, soft and constant, until one day you realize the sound is unbearable. That's how it was with Ian and me. People assume that when a relationship falters, it's because of something dramatic, cheating, betrayal, a lie exposed. But sometimes, it's just silence. The kind that fills the space between two people who used to know how to breathe in sync. I didn't fall out of love with Ian. That's the hardest part to explain. I didn't stop caring or wanting him. I stopped feeling seen. I stopped feeling felt. And I didn't know how to say that without sounding ungrateful, or cruel, or broken. And for a while, I thought maybe I was broken. I'd lie in bed next to him, his hand resting on my hip, and feel nothing. Not revulsion. Not anger. Just absence. Like my body was a room he kept walking into without knocking. But here's the truth I didn't want to admit, I let it happen. I let my own loneliness become invisible because I was scared of what honesty would cost. I thought if I kept being agreeable, low maintenance, self-sufficient, we'd coast through the tough stuff. I thought love was about endurance, not evolution. And then came that leaky faucet. And Miriam, my neighbor. 82 years old, arthritis in both knees, sharper than anyone I've ever met. I went over to fix a drip and ended up staying for tea. She didn't touch me. She didn't offer advice. She just looked at me and said, "You've gone quiet inside, haven't you?" And I cracked. Because yes. I had. That quiet had swallowed everything, my desire, my anger, even my joy. I was functioning on autopilot in a relationship that looked fine from the outside. But inside? We were two people holding hands out of habit, not heat. Ian and I, we talked. Finally. I don't know what that talk fixed, if anything. But it started something honest. He stayed. But we're not the same. We're learning each other again. We ask now. We pause before we touch. We don't use sex to bandage what needs words. And when he holds me, sometimes it still feels awkward, like we're strangers learning the shape of each other all over again. But I'll take awkward over empty. Because that's what I've learned, love is not the absence of conflict. It's not about feeling desired all the time. It's about being willing to be seen when you're at your worst, and letting someone love you there. It's about saying, "This is me." Needy. Distant. Afraid. Still here. Desire? It's not just physical. It's emotional risk. It's asking to be held and not touched. It's letting someone see your disappointment, your doubts, your dry spells, and saying, "I'm still yours, if you want me." And when they say yes? Not out of obligation, but out of choice. That's intimacy. So no, this isn't a story about fixing a faucet and falling in love with someone new. This is a story about how a leak made me see the cracks I'd been ignoring in myself. About how the quiet can be dangerous, but also necessary. Because sometimes, you have to go quiet, to hear what your heart has been whispering all along. And when you finally listen, that's where healing begins.